Actually, when defending.
I think it's like.
Fabrizo Romano has tweeted, I understand Arsenal have decided to seal David Raya deal in 2024. It's all guaranteed as buy option clause will be triggered for 27 million. Raya already signed potential long-term contract as Arsenal player for June 2024. All done. Brentford accepted his structure due to FFP. Now, really and truly, Romano, I get it. You're verified. You know, you need the engagements for whatever reason. This is just a whole load of nothing. It's not nothing. Big up Romano, but we already knew this. We already knew that it was a loan it was a loan that was essentially going to turn into a permanent deal. You know, a man like David Raya, who told Brentford, I am not signing a new contract, mysteriously signs a new deal in line with going to Arsenal and, signing for Arsenal Football Club. That was obviously to protect Brentford. We all know, not that I'm a finance man, but we're trying to be a bit creative with FFP because of this, assuming this goes on this does go through and happens in the summer, then obviously I assume for the accounting year, David Raya's deal will be, factored into next year. So I guess with the Declan Rice and the Kai Havertz transfers and everything else, we can balance the books really. But big up Raya, man. We all knew you signed a new deal, a long-term deal at Arsenal, probably the end of Ramsdale's day at Arsenal Football Club beyond this season. But, it is what it is in that regards. Moving away from that, allegedly Arsenal make early decision on signing David Raya permanently from Brentford. We made that decision when we brought the man to the club, really and truly. We weren't going to sign a man on loan and then he's just going to F off back to Brentford. Brentford would have been silly to let him go on a dry loan with a year left on his deal where he could agree moves indirectly with British clubs or overseas clubs from January. That's why he signed that new deal to protect Brentford in case anything went wrong with this potential move with Arsenal. He has signed a new long-term deal and his permanent home is the Emirates, people. Allegedly, Football Transfers has said Arsenal eye double swoop for Vlahovic and Marcus Leonardo. Arsenal are weighing up moves for both Vlahovic and Santos wonder kid Marcus Leonardo. Probably not. Would I, Jesus and his versatility, a young fellow Brazilian in Marcus Leonardo with potential to be better and a relative proven household striker in the European game in Vlahovic. I would love that, but I can't see us bringing in both in the same, let alone in the same window. You probably got more chance of signing the Santos player just off the basis of his agents recently come out and said they're evaluating situations in January. Football Transfers exclusively revealed in July that Arsenal had sent scouts out to watch 20-year-old Leonardo, but now, according to sources, the Gunners want to revamp their forward line in January with the possible addition of Vlahovic as well as the Brazilian under-23 international. Sending scouts doesn't mean you're necessarily going to buy someone. I'm not throwing shade on Football Transfers, but, they've linked us with Tchouaméni and Mbappe and many ridiculous people. So 99.9% of these things are BS. And apparently Juventus are trying to get Vlahovic to commit to a new deal. Obviously, Mikel Arteta once tried to get Vlahovic. We need a striker. If we can do that in January, as well as bringing in a centre middle too, and maybe a winger for Bukayo Saka, competition / allowing him to be rested, I'm all for that. We are told that scouts flew to Brazil a second time to watch Leonardo play for Santos in their 7-0 win over Internacional. Leonardo is massively admired by Arsenal. Obviously, the Edu links probably cue that. Arsenal be hoping that the Brazilian connection at Arsenal would go a long way to convince a prolific young goal scorer to sign on the dotted line for somewhere around 15 to 20 million. Now, in terms of long-termism, if he's got the scope to be one of these new Brazilian guys, these Hendricks, these Victor Rugs, these guys that are going to announce themselves in the European market, I'm all for that. We've got a young squad. If he can mature with this squad, great. 20 million could turn into a player worth 100 odd million, whatever you say. From what we spent on Saliba, from what we spent on Saka, if anything, because he was free, for what we spent on Martinelli, to even say they've quadrupled their transfer value is probably not even doing them justice. So why not? But in terms of us trying to be a team that, is trying to fight City and things, is he guaranteed to sign for this football club and make us stronger in our pursuit of a Premier League title? We'd have to give the young player grace period. So surely it's the Vlahovic's, it's the Osimhen's, it's the Ivan Toney's, these kind of proven, more experienced players that we probably need to bring in. If there's 20 million spare, bring my man to the carpet. And to be fair with you, if despite being 20, if his age is irrelevant and he's ready to hit the ground running, which would make him an anomaly, then why not get it done? His agent, people, is working to bring him into Europe, people. His agent has said, in fact, Rafael Pimenta, who I think is the same agent as Haaland. Already in the previous transfer window, we had the possibility of of him being sold. But Santos's sporting situation was very particular. He agreed to stay because he wanted to help out until the end of the season. He didn't want to leave because it wasn't the right thing to do. But the time has come for the transfer. He wants to have a European experience, and his time will come this winter. I do think he's decent from what I've seen. I don't think he's Endrick and Victor Rulg level, but at this moment in time, at 20 years of age, he's young, he's impressionable. As I said, if he did sign, especially in January mid-season, he'd have to cope to a life off the field, as well as going from Brazil to living in London. He'd have to get up to speed with what Arteta demands. Obviously, you see many a January sign for a club and have a difficult 6 months. Look at Martin Odegaard, really and truly. But if he makes us stronger, then I'm all for it, really. Why wouldn't we? Again, we tried to get Vlahovic previously. It hasn't worked out. His current deal ends in 2026. They're trying to get him to sign fresh terms. So maybe that's where the links come from, people, as well as Arsenal needing a striker. Pedro Neto is injured at this moment. Don't forget to smash the like button. But that has not stopped links to Arsenal, Man United, and Saudi Arabia clubs, people. He's attracting interest from the 2 Premier League clubs, as well as clubs in Saudi. He's currently injured at the moment, despite being, in my opinion, one of the players of the season so far, especially on the left-hand side, even though we'd want him to compete with Saka. We know we have an interest in him. We followed him since his days at Braga, at Lazio. We tried to get him a few seasons ago. He's a player that's admired. But at the end of the day, he's injured. I can't see us spending a madness in January. The summer, if anything, really and truly. Where you look at Douglas Luiz, Vlahovic, Ivan Toney, obviously Pedro Neto, these players are key players to whatever their team is trying to do. So you have to put down a bid that is probably worth more than that is a lot more than they're worth, and one that a team would be stupid to turn down. I'm not too sure, but for what it's worth, people, Neto has been highlighted by the Gunners recruitment team as an ideal addition to the squad to help cover injuries and add more depth to Arsenal's charge for domestic and European success. Contact has been made between the club and the player's agent Mendes over the conditions of a potential deal. So that just means, that's like going to a shop, asking how much something is, and then making a decision. When you hear people are scouting or talking with agents, obviously we're trying to see if a deal could be done, but it doesn't mean any moves imminent, people. Sources have informed us that it will take at least 60 million to force him out of Wolves this winter. And if that sum is reached, then Gary O'Neill may be forced to lose one of his star men. Can we spend 60 million on a winger without addressing midfield? Again, I'm no finance man, but we spent a lot in the summer, to the point where Raya's, it's a dodgy permanent deal, but it's a loan sort of thing. I'm not too sure. 60 million, maybe a slight bit overpriced, but surely Wolves are not going to let him go until the summer at least. Again, he's got interest from Saudi Arabia. He's got interest from Arsenal and probably a whole bunch of other clubs that aren't listed. This article's also said his preference is to stay currently in Europe. 1 minute, Tomiyasu is linked with a move to Bayern Munich. Apparently, Arsenal are ready to open talks with Tomiyasu over a new contract. He has 18 months left on his deal. Arsenal do have an option of extending it by a further 12 months. So essentially, we've got a bit of time, but it makes sense. Tomiyasu's having a good season. He's a valued member of the squad. He's not the oldest of players. Obviously, we want to make sure that we continuously tie down players. So it makes sense, people. And that's why I said I don't buy the Bayern Munich rumors. I think there's obviously an admiration for the man's talent. There's maybe even a want to get a deal done. But the aggressive links, especially in January, probably agents putting things into the papers because my man is going to sign a new deal for whatever, people. And obviously, Saka, Saliba, Martinelli, Benjamin White, Aaron Ramsdale, probably missing out, and not Eddie Nketiah, technically Nelson. A number of players have signed new and long-term deals in line with obviously Declan Rice as well, signing for the club. So there you have it, man. Big up Tomiyasu. But yeah, that's where we're at with him. Arsenal will reject any approach from Bayern for defender Tomiyasu, people, allegedly. Big up the 25-year-old. And this new contract will be important, really, because if you're his agent, if you're Arsenal, you at least want to get a 5-year deal, ideally 4 years with an option of another one. If you're his agent, you're probably pushing for a 4-year deal just because in the next 18 months, you're in line to probably get another deal. That's probably why Benjamin White's deal, another one linked with a move away, is taking so long, because he's, 26 or 27, one of them ages there, Benjamin White. It's an important contract, really. And you've got, again, it's money, innit? You've got to leverage your earnings. You've got to try and maximize your earnings. You've got to try and play on your importance to the squad. Think about it. If in you lot's walk of life, you might not be the star man of your company or the face of your company, but if you're a valued member in the group, if you work hard, if your work is good, if you have the trust of your management and they're making progress, naturally, you're going to want to be compensated football is no different, really, in my opinion. And you'd imagine Tomiyasu is probably one of the nearer the lower end kind of paid players at the club, and he is a key player of some sort. So you want to have some sort of parity. Apparently, Arteta's drawn up a 4-man transfer wish list. Again, I would love Zubimendi. He's got a release clause. Whether he wants to leave Sociedad mid-season is another thing. I think Douglas Luiz would be a welcome addition to the club, but whether we will offer what Aston Villa want, Aston Villa be crazy to let him go unless it's for stupid money. They're fifth at this moment in time with the Premier League returning. Emre is firing. They've given my man a new deal. I'm sure there'd be a willingness for him to want to sign for Arsenal and Arsenal to get it done, but it's money. You know, what was it? A few summers ago, we tried to buy him. We made like 3 bids in the last week of the transfer week. Whatever we bidded, I think it was 25, 30 million. Probably whatever they were asking for, should have just given it to them. Because if I'm Aston Villa, I'm sitting there saying, you need to bid 65 million, the same that you bidded for Havertz to even get a conversation. Rightly so, Arsenal have shown their hands. And whether it was, you know, even if you spent 65 million on Douglas Luiz in the summer, hindsight's a wonderful thing. And I still would have said he's probably a bit overpriced, but at least there's a use. You can see he's a 6 and an 8. Kai Havertz, not making this about him, but can play everywhere. You know, we could have maybe pushed a bit more to get Zubimendi over the line, although there must be something that's unbeknown to us football fans, because he was aggressively linked with Arsenal and Barcelona, didn't go anywhere. You could have maybe got Zubimendi, could have got Douglas Luiz. He hasn't kicked a ball for Chelsea, but you could have got Lavia. Different role, but you look at Madison, different, but you could have got Kudus. There was more effective ways, and probably a bunch of other names, really and truly, that we could have maybe angled for or tried to get at the football club. But you know, it's the same old names, really. Douglas Luiz, Zubimendi. Apparently, you want a teenage midfield duo. We've been linked with Gabriel Moscardo, of course, of Corinthians, and obviously the Belgium lad Arthur Vermeeren as well. So these are the same names. So it feels like this is being relayed, people. Kirio, every week that goes past, he is being linked with a club. Apparently AC Milan want him. I'm sure the prospect of more regular football, moving to a league that you know, and being in a lovely country like Italy would be great. Kirio, I know you want more first team football. I feel a bit sorry for you. But again, you need to stay until the end of the season at the very least. We need to keep the squad together, people. So yeah, every day that goes past, Kirio is linked with another move away, and it'd be a shame if he was only here for a year, people. And this article's gone on to say he's seeking a change. So I'm not too sure what to buy into any of these things. Again, people, just because I don't want to miss out anything, and I haven't brought some of the links to you lot. Allegedly, John Cross has said Arsenal remain very interested in Tony, but they also have to sell to stay in line with spending rules while strengthening their midfield, with potentially a new loan signing as Villa's Douglas Luiz is more of a long-term option, is now a higher priority. I mean, we do see this every transfer window. Nobody quite knows. You know, you'd imagine if we had to sell anybody, you know, Partey, someone, but with him being injured and us needing him for what's left of the season, would that make sense? Aaron Ramsdale could be someone that could, one of the few players that bring in a decent fee. But obviously, with us being in the season, does that make sense? Smith Rowe's currently injured. You could probably sell him. Does that make sense? Eddie Nketiah and Reece Nelson could be people that could bring some cash in, but you probably need them for bodies purposes. I'm not a fan of tearing up the squad in January, if I'm honest. And to go back to Kirio, people, in the last 24 hours, he's actually been in with Roma, Napoli, AC Milan, and Sevilla once again, people. So there you have it. So yeah, we'll have to see where that's concerned with Douglas Luiz and Ivan Toney. I don't expect to see any of them at the Emirates. Apparently, Romano said many top European clubs are keen on signing Fofana from Monaco as he's out of contract in 2025 and not 2024, despite reports. Understand he's not a concrete target for PSG. There are other clubs pushing to sign Fofana. I mean, it would have been great on a free. And I'm sure you lot would have seen the couple of great goals he scored for France during this international break. We could do a lot worse. And could he be available at a cut price? Obviously, Monaco, we did dealings for Balogun. We scratched your back, scratch ours. He'd be a good option. I don't expect to see him change scenes in January, and definitely not for Arsenal, but he'd be welcome in midfield, people. So yeah, man. Let me know your thoughts on potentially Kirio departing, Ramsdale departing. What do you feel about Tomiyasu signing a new deal? How would you feel about Fofana? Where are you at with Douglas Luiz, Ivan Toney, and Pedro Neto? Which, if we'd signed all 3 of them in January, that's probably a fee similar to what we spent in the last 2 summers, which is why I can't see it happening. I only expect one addition, a central midfielder, and probably. You see how we signed Jorginho for a cut price and stuff like that. I think it will be a bit of a January like last year, which Trossard was a great player, you know, hit the ground running in January. but he had one leg out of Brighton, apologies. Jorginho, it was made clear Chelsea are not moving with you. So we took advantage of that. Kirill, 20-odd million pounds. It's not the greatest, people. So I do think we'll do something in January, but I'm not really optimistic on significant business. I just expect one, and that would be a central midfielder. I'm not saying it's enough. In an ideal world, striker, winger, and centre mid without a doubt. I think midfield has to be really nailed on, come next season, going into August. I don't want to, and some of you follow me, big up my long-term supporters and the new ones, subscribe. But some of you have followed me for a couple of years now, and I've said more often than not, central midfield. We spent close to 200 million really on midfield, really and truly. Declan Rice for 100 odd, Kai Havertz for 65, and I'm still saying the same things. And again, defense, I like our options, not saying we can't improve. Further forward, I like our options, not saying we can't improve. Midfield, there's more questions than answers. I like Jorginho and El Nene, but are they those players that I kind of bet on for the vast majority of the season? Probably not. Probably rotation options. We need a starter. Partey, a quality player, never fit. Well, he was fit for 40 appearances last year, but this season, not been like that. Declan Rice, great player, even though he's not Superman. And actually, where you look at Mikel Arteta, considering you and Edu were midfielders, yeah, you brought in Declan Rice, but we brought a couple of bookie midfielders, if I'm honest with you. The jury's still out on Fabio Vieira. I like him, but that longevity and consistency of performance has evaded him. I like Jorginho, but he's quite limited in certain games. He does quite well, but Chelsea away in the first half, and Spurs when he came on at the Emirates, you sign up for those things. El Nene is a decent player, and I like him, a very likable guy, but beyond his sell-by date, we've Kai Havertz, a 65 million pound experiment, which at this moment in time, I hope to be wrong, but at this moment in time, there's way more questions than answers. As I said, there are different roles. I'm just talking about utilizing finances, which is not my money, so I don't really care in the grand scheme of things. But we might have even been able to, assuming that football is as white and black as just going for a player, bidding and getting the player. We all know there's grey areas, but 50-odd million for Zubamendi's release clause. James Maddison obviously plays in a different role, but that could have been something. Kudus, and the basis of his versatility, could have been better. Lavia was linked with us. Why did 50 million for Lavia can't be too much money if you spent 65 million for Kai Havertz, who's in his mid to late 20s, and there's no confirmation as to what he's on. So if Mikel Arteta wanted that, and you were a midfielder, a Premier League midfielder, you're gonna have to live or die by this, really. Jorginho didn't cost a lot of money. But yeah, we spent a lot of money technically in midfield, really. And who's really nailed things down, really? Odegaard, fair enough. You're my guy. I backed him from when he signed for the club and he had a slow time. Fair enough. You got the 10 sorted out. Declan Rice, money well spent. We even owe West Ham a couple more million. Money well spent. But if anything happens to them, it's peak. I do think Partey hasn't been as great signing for Arsenal as we expected, but he's been a quality player. Unfortunately, the Partey of 2023 is not about at this moment in time. So yeah, man, let me know your thoughts on everything we've discussed. Appreciative for you lot listening, for me going over the news and offering my opinions. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you're following on all the socials. Information's in the description. Don't forget to like the video. Don't leave without hitting the like button, people. Appreciative for all your support. We love this football club same way. Peace.
I think it's like